Good evening, Messiah, and welcome to our presidential town hall. I'm Josh McLeaf, and of course, I'm joined by Messiah University President Kim Phipps. President Phipps, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Happy to be here.
Yes,
Josh.
we were just talking before the show. The last time we had her on here was in the spring of 2021, right in the middle of COVID. So it's great to have you on. You know, without those looming questions of masks and social distancing, it's good to be able to have some more relaxed conversation without all that tension.
Absolutely.
In the air. Yes. So thank you so much again for coming on. But before we get started, we do want to remind everyone that they are invited to submit questions for you throughout our broadcast. So submit your questions for President Phipps in the comments of this live stream or on our Instagram at Yellow Breeches TV. We'll select a handful of those questions to ask the President in the last segment of our show. Submitting a question also gives you the chance to win your very own YBTV t-shirt, so very exciting things there. Keep those questions coming, and we're excited to see what you all have to ask. Now we'll just dive right into it with some Messiah-related questions. So just so everyone is on the same page, those of the watching at home, can you just kind of describe your responsibilities as president of the university?
Yeah, so as president of the university, you're really the chief executive officer, which means that ultimately all of the day-to-day operations of the university report to me. So a series of vice presidents and the provosts who are on my cabinet. So it's responsibility for certainly all of the educational programming, all of the fundraising, the marketing and communication, how we tell our story. Also, I think things like government relations, how we work with legislators and others to understand what we're all about, budget and finance. So it's a very interesting role because it has such breadth, but you have to have a great team. You know, it's never just about you. It's the team you work with, the students you serve, and then ultimately I report to the Board of Trustees. And so at a college or a university, there's an you would call them external board, and the president is the chief executive officer, but they hire me. They have the potential to fire me.
Wow.
They evaluate me every year.
Okay, gotcha. Understood. So, you know, being the chief executive officer, you know, it does sound like, you know, despite the Board of Trustees kind of being there, not necessarily looming over you, but you have, you know, a good bit of drive over how the university kind of moves. So what are some of the major projects you've overseen here at Messiah?
Well, a number of things. Maybe most recently, I think about our move from college to university status, which we think better reflected the fact that we now have about 800 graduate students. Also the fact that we have very comprehensive curriculum that includes both applied and professional programs as well as traditional liberal arts. And then we have been moving toward having some more accelerated programs with programs like physical therapy, or most recently the MBA that you can do the 4+1. Yeah. All of that is more representative of a university than a college. So that would be one initiative. At the start of the graduate school 12 years ago would certainly have been something. I knew that that was a space we needed to move into, not just because there was a decreasing number of traditional undergraduates in our region, the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, but also because I thought we had a really important thing to do in terms of our mission and providing faith-based education to people who wanted graduate education. So there would be that. Been very involved with fundraising, working with our advancement division. We've raised over $185 million during my tenure. I came in and helped finish the To Serve and Lead campaign when President Sawatsky passed away, and then all the campaigns since then. So a lot of the buildings and things, you know, I don't personally build the buildings, but my responsibility is to share the story with donors and share the need and tell them why this would be significant for our students and the student experience. So there would be, that would be it. Also really developing strong partnerships for the university, whether that's with government officials, whether that's with other institutions, but the president really is like a chief fundraiser, chief storyteller, chief manager, chief educator.
Yeah, for sure. I like that title of chief storyteller. Maybe I should change my title to that here at YBTV.
Absolutely.
You know, we'll definitely consider that. So it definitely sounds like you've made a lot of, you know, major improvements here at the university in terms of, you know, facilities, becoming a university. What are some of the other things you'd like to accomplish here in your time as president?
Yeah, and let me just mention one other thing that at least I was, in addition to grad school, something that I thought was really important, and other people delivered it, but I certainly had asked the educators to work on. One thing very recently, which is a revision to our general education program to make sure that students have to have digital competency and digital citizenship to graduate. We are eliminating the core course, which students had mixed responses to for many years, and are now have a different course that they would be taking about ethics and the modern world. And so some of those kinds of educational changes, but also the requirement for experiential learning. Because as an educator and as I watch students, I believe that what happens outside the classroom is just as essential as what happens inside the classroom as far as a learning environment. So, you know, now at Messiah, you have to have an experiential learning initiative in order to graduate.
Right.
So that would be another thing. I think moving forward in the future, we're hoping to do more, and we've developed a lot more partnerships with high schools, so we're doing more dual enrollment. Our number of students was like 120, I think, last year. This year it's 250 students.
Wow.
You know, who are willing, it's sort of, instead of maybe taking AP courses, they're taking courses early from college or the university. That can help students graduate in less than 4 years, which is helpful financially, although we like to have them as long as we can.
Sure, yeah.
But it really is, you know, education is costly, and we know that. And so that kind of partnership's important. I also think that in terms of graduate programs, we're going to be adding a master's in music therapy, a master's in social work. Those have been approved in the next couple years. So you have to always be looking at not only what you're doing and doing it well, which is essential, but you have to also be looking out on the landscape and figure out where are their needs in society, where are their needs, especially that we want Christian servant leaders to be involved and be willing to work on some of those kinds of programs. So I think that we are a very strong university in a very, very capable place, but we always want to keep working toward excellence and providing students with the best possible education at both the graduate and undergraduate level.
For sure, yeah. And it's great that you're kind of recognizing the needs of, you know, where Christian workers needed, you know, how can we kind of help relieve that burden of, you know, the financial cost of education.
Right.
So definitely considering a lot of things there, which is great. But kind of just reflecting on your time as president here, you were named president in the early 2000s, is that correct?
Correct. I was officially named in December 2004.
Okay, yeah, so you're going on, you know, nearly 2 decades here at
Right.
Messiah. So what kind of keeps you coming back to not just the job, but this institution year after year?
Yeah. Well, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on, you know, a student broadcast, but it really is students. I loved teaching. I always knew that I was going to be in education. I was the kind of kid who played school. I have a brother older and a brother younger, and they're like, they used to hate it. I used to say, come on, no, we don't want to play school, let's go outside. But I loved learning. I knew I was going to teach at the collegiate level and love students. And when I found out I loved administration, I served at one other institution besides Messiah, a university called Malone University in Canton, Ohio, which is also a faith-based institution. And I had a lot of opportunities to do administrative work there and found that I also loved it. But I always had to still have student contact. And I didn't know if I wanted to be president. I was the provost here. I'd been a dean and provost. Then President Sawatsky became ill, and they asked me to be the acting president. And what I found there was students at least know who the president is. They may not know who the provost is, but you kind of, and if I wanted to, I could seek students out and be really connected with students. So that has been the way I've tried to look at my presidency. And that is what keeps me coming back, because just budgeting or budget cutting or solving complicated issues like COVID and all of that during that time. But it was always about students and relationships with students, seeing what happens in their lives when they're here, and then witnessing what happens in their lives as alumni. So I think it's just the power to be involved with such important work as education that's transformational.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great response. We are going to take a quick break, but up next we'll talk with the president about her values and the path that brought her here to Messiah. Keep submitting those questions if you haven't already. Our presidential town hall continues on the other side of this short break.
Sports! Welcome back to Live TV Sports.
Men's soccer played their first round of the NCAA.
I'm your women's play-by-play soccer announcer.
Running like solo in no man's land for a while was really difficult.
name is Emma Bain, and I'm the assistant head tutor of the Writing Center. As college students, we're always writing, whether it's a lab report, discussion post, or essay. Here at Messiah University, you don't have to go through the writing process alone. The Writing Center is a free service that helps undergraduate students become better writers through peer tutoring. Our tutors are trained peers who work in one-on-one sessions tailored to each student's needs and goals. We're here for any student at any point in the writing process, whether you're a first year working on an FYS paper or a senior touching up a final draft. No matter your skill level, we're here to equip you with the tools you need to grow as a writer. Schedule an appointment on Falcon Link today by searching Learning Center/Writing Center Appointments and clicking New Appointment. For more information, please follow us on Instagram at Messiah Writing Center or email us at writingcenter@messiah.edu. Happy writing!
Welcome back to the Presidential Town Hall on YBTV. I'm Josh McLeaf, joined again by Messiah University President Kim Phipps. Before the break, we talked about what the President Phipps does on a daily basis here at Messiah and much more. Now we're going to shift gears and see the more personal side to President Phipps. So President Phipps, we were just talking in the break, you graduated at age 16. You were the first female president of Messiah University. You're really, breaking barriers and setting standards. But I think it's also important to recognize that you're a first-generation college student, correct? So can you kind of just share from your experience the significance of that?
Sure. All four of my grandparents were German immigrants to New York City from Germany, and then they did not go to high school or anything like that. They worked as hotel clerks, maidservants. My parents then didn't go to high school, and they have this very bookish kid who's me, who just loves to read and loves learning. But they were very encouraging to me, even if they didn't always really understand a lot about it. So I think as a first-generation student, what I have always known, and I think about that a lot with current first-generation students when we talk, is they don't have the same support system at home to understand things like FAFSA reforms and college and all of that. What it takes and what's involved in that. So I think it's given me a lens of wanting to be sure that our communication to parents is really clear, that we have a good Office of Student Success and other places here where students feel that they can comfortably ask the questions they may think other people just know, and maybe they didn't know, because it's not like my own daughter now who's getting her PhD this next spring. She's lived around college campuses her entire life. Right. She's always known about academics, but that wasn't true growing up. But my family, and I will say this to my parents again, they were encouraging to me, and even when the decision was made for me to skip from 5th to 7th grade, I remember sitting with my parents, with our high school principal, and they were like, well, if you think she should do that. They didn't have a frame of reference for that. And so I just appreciated, though, that they were willing to encourage me. And I think now with first-generation students, they still need that encouragement, but we know more of what are the kinds of questions they have and how do we make sure as a university that we answer them clearly.
Absolutely, and I think it's great that you have that viewpoint and kind of can bring that insight into that process. Sure. So you mentioned earlier about how, you always knew, you loved education, you knew you wanted to teach at the collegiate level. Was education or higher education always the plan? Were there any other career paths you were considering?
The only thing, I had thought that I might teach at the high school or middle school level and then go on, for further. And my junior year of college, I had an opportunity to substitute teach for 3 weeks at a middle school. And then I said, I don't think this is really for me. There's a lot of classroom behavior, discipline things. Sure. And I thought, nah, I think I'm just going to go straight on and get the PhD and teach at the college level. So, so it was always teaching, and then having an opportunity to at least even do a little substitute teaching made me say, oh, I think I want to work with older students. So.
For sure, yeah, definitely a difference I can imagine between the college setting and the middle school setting, for sure. We talked earlier about COVID, and in times like that, I feel like it can be very overwhelming, especially when you have such a position of so much leadership. So we talk a lot about self-care here at college. How do you balance classwork and your health? So how are some of the ways that you practice self-care, or even finding that balance between work and your personal life?
Yeah, and I think it's an ongoing journey. There are times in life you do it better than at others, and that's been true for me. COVID was really tough for everybody, and I certainly felt the weight of that, wanting to be sure the decisions we made were keeping students safe. There are a lot of decisions you make in leadership, and people might be disappointed in a decision, or maybe something wasn't as successful, but you felt like there was life and death. There was so much we didn't know and understand early on, and the impact on everyone. So during that time, I think other than lots of season of prayer, continuously, literally seeking God's face for wisdom and praying for humility and understanding and discernment. But I think that was not the best time of self-care, and I think that was true for many people, just because so much was changing constantly. The information you had was changing constantly. I worked with an incredible team of people here at Messiah. I can't say enough about all of them, but I think all of us would say afterwards that was the piece of, okay, we need to get back to more regular exercise. We need to make sure that the disciplines that we have in our life, because I felt like I was praying all the time, but even some of the kinds of disciplines of study of scripture and things like that, I just found myself worrying all the time and not concentrating maybe as much. So I think that certainly spiritual disciplines are critical. And I just now this year, like there were so many, I went to see my eye doctor and I hadn't seen him since, I don't know, 2019. He said, I didn't know you were my patient anymore. I said, COVID just was like, it loomed large.
Sure.
So, it's getting back to even healthy things like that you're supposed to do and taking care of yourself. But I think as much as we can, we always have to remember the spiritual, the physical, and also the emotional and mental. And the other thing that was hard is I'm a people person, and so I missed human contact as much.
I can imagine.
My team, students, and there were distances. We tried to do what we could do, but I remember walking into Lottie one night early on in COVID and realizing students couldn't sit close to each other. I mean, I knew that, but it was seeing it and seeing students walking out with their clamshells to go eat, or students 6 feet apart, and I just started to cry. I thought, this is not what the college experience is supposed to be, But, I'm grateful that we got through it, and for those of you who are seniors this year, I mean, you really had the full gamut of experiences. So.
Right, yeah, that was my first year coming in, was kind of like you're right in the middle of all that. And so, I think it's really hard, like you said, to establish a routine when just the routine just kind of feels like it's constantly changing because of that changing information. So.
And people thinking, well, why did you get it wrong? And you're trying so hard to. And then during COVID too, there was a lot of polarization among people about how we should respond, about what the Christian way was to respond.
Right.
And so that made it difficult too, I think, in terms of responding to people and some of the accusations or this. And you're just trying to say, we're just doing the best we can with the information we have. And what I would always say to parents or people who had different views about masking or this, we're trying to do our best to keep everybody safe and healthy. That's all I could tell you is we love your children. And we're trying, so.
Yeah, just emphasizing that you're not trying to restrict anybody. You're trying to just kind of keep everyone safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sure.
But switching gears to a more positive note, what's one thing that you feel Messiah students might be surprised to learn about you?
I think last year I shared with the student leadership group some of my own struggles with imposter syndrome, and I also mentioned that I've always struggled with anxiety, and so then. A Minds Matter group asked to meet with me, and I've had other students reach out. So I think sometimes if you're in leadership, you project a certain amount of confidence, and you should as president. But I think it's important to also be vulnerable and share that. And so I have always struggled with anxiety and have had to have a physician assist me with that and other things. And then with imposter syndrome, that's always, I didn't know the name for it, but I knew that I always worried, like, there are all these really talented people who are presidents or smarter people, or they went to better schools than I did, or this or that. And then thinking through, okay, well, I've had 20 years here now. There are a lot of people who actually seek me out and look for me to be a mentor. And I have to think that through and say, okay, I know something too. It's keeping yourself in perspective, not becoming haughty or overly confident, but also realizing that no, you're not an imposter. The Lord has been using you and your gifts in this context. And so I think at least sometimes students would be surprised to know that.
For sure.
But I'm glad to share that with students just because I think a lot of them struggle with some of those same things.
Right. And kind of branching off of that a little bit, what is one thing that you would tell a younger President Phipps who is kind of struggling with wondering, is she good enough? Is she making the right decisions?
Yeah. I think it would be to trust the feedback more, to input from people. So, for example, I'm evaluated every year by the board, but then every so many years, I think it's like every 5th year in a term, student leadership speaks into my work, faculty leadership, and others. And so I think that, sometimes you have concrete evidence that yes, or this is successful, this fundraising campaign is successful. This feedback says that you're an approachable leader, these kinds of things. So sometimes I think you have to really trust the voices that are speaking into your life in a positive way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very important to kind of listen to what other people are saying about you, to a degree, of course.
Exactly.
Right.
And you go for themes. When I was a professor, it would kill me if like one student said, I was disorganized or something. I'd be, you've got to be kidding me,
Yeah.
And then you're like, but there are themes. But, it would also cause me to think, well, maybe for that one student, is there anything I could have done better? So I think it's taking themes from the feedback, but realizing that I think God does put people in our paths to speak into our lives, and we want to be open to that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for those thoughtful answers. A lot of great quotes there for sure. But earlier, I believe a week or two ago, our reporter and producer, Rosie Schiano, shot a tour of your house over at Orchard Hill.
Great.
We'll take a look at that now.
Thanks, Josh. I'm currently here at Orchard Hill, better known as KP's home, and I'm going to give you guys a tour. Let's go. Okay, so now we are inside of KP's home, and if you don't know this, KP has 2 different parts of her house, one public and one private. So right now we are in the public part of her home, so let's come along this way and I'll show you around. So if you follow me this way, if you go left at the door, we're going to come into this big room where a lot of events are held, Christmas gatherings, parties, dinners, anything like that. So it's a pretty big open space for larger amounts of people to gather with KP and just to get a better one-on-one sort of interaction with her. If you ever get the chance to come to KP's home, you'll notice that there's a variety of artworks displayed along the home. All the artwork is made by Messiah students and is changed out regularly. Once you come down the stairs, you're greeted by multiple areas of game interactions. We have foosball tables, a pool table, area for ping pong. There's an area where you can play darts, and it's just an open area for people to get to know each other, communicate, and interact. Now, if you're here and you're feeling a little overstimulated, or you just really don't want to play pool, do what I'm doing. Sit down, relax, grab the remote, turn on the TV, kick your feet up, and play some PlayStation. We should get one of these in the studio. Now coming outside, KP has this nice open area where she usually has a fire pit and some chairs, but due to the colder season, it's put away. Unfortunately, the tour is now over, but I really hope you guys were able to see a little bit more of KP's home and just be a little bit more acclimated with the area. Right now, throwing it back to KP and Josh at the desk. Guys? Guess my swipe access wasn't activated yet.
All right, that was great. Thank you, Rosie. We'll have to talk to Alan about getting one of those PS4s here in the studio. Now, Caleb Kukin and Emma Dingus are bringing you the latest on Messiah Athletics. Caleb?
Thanks, Josh. Even though we may have been on Thanksgiving break last week, both basketball teams stayed busy.
Yeah, Emma, and that's because there were only 2 games over break, so we're not doing our usual Falcon 4. Instead, let's just call it the Falcon 2.
I like it. We're going to start with women's basketball, as they had a great start to their Thanksgiving break when they had a big victory over Penn State Altoona. Our highlight comes from Liv Montero in the second half. As we see here, it's going to pass out. Montero in the middle. She's coming up, pass it to Sydney Hoffman on the outside, and she's going to sneak her way into that back corner. It's going to go back to her, take it up and get the reverse layup, and just leaves them stunned. As we look again, just being able to sneak back in there and just drive it right to the net, puts it up for the reverse layup, getting the Falcons points. The Falcons would go on to win 73-50 over the Nittany Lions. They traveled to Dallas, PA on Thursday to face Mercer-Cordia University in the Mercer-Cordia tournament.
And let's continue on the court with men's basketball as they took a short road trip over to Penn State Harrisburg to face the Nittany Lions. The Falcons battled back and forth all game thanks to plays like this one. We see the board by McBride, who gives it to Coletti. Coletti, with some space, decides to pass it to Thompson, and Thompson barreling down the lane with the soft touch and the foul. I mean, Thompson couldn't have done that any better. You'll see it here, just a little bit of contact, but he's able to stay composed and lay it up for the and one. And we'll see the free throw try here from Thompson. Thompson nails it, cutting the lead 66-7. Unfortunately, the Falcons could not hold on as they dropped this one 73-80. Falcons were led by Caleb Lyles with 20 points. They fall to a 1-4 record overall and are back on action this Wednesday against Notre Dame of Maryland University.
Well, now that we're all caught up on what happened this past week, let's look at Thanksgiving break. Reed Milken has this week's Falcon forecast. Reed?
Emma, Caleb, thank you so much. Let's take a look at what the weather is looking like right now. As you can see, we're sitting at a very cold 39 degrees, which it is unfortunate we're entering those colder months, but the bright side of it is that we're sitting at 0% precipitation, which is great in my opinion. And as we look at our Tuesday planner, you'll see that it's 0% precipitation, the whole way through, which is great to see. If we move on to our next slide here, as you can see, we're looking at our surface map, and you'll see that cold front come down from up top and move through Harrisburg here, but that's responsible for a lot of the colder weather that we're going to be getting, but thankfully, like I said, 0 precipitation, so that's great to see. As we'll see now, our rainfall totals, which only backs up what I was saying before. Harrisburg right here, we're missing all of this nasty green stuff up here. Harrisburg's going to stay dry. You love to see it. And as we move on to our next slide here, expected dew points, my favorite slide to cover. We're looking at some cold 22s for Monday through Wednesday, which is whenever the air starts to get a little drier. You know, the hands might start cracking, which is unfortunate, but just what comes with some of that colder weather. The good news is it spikes up at the end there with Thursday and Friday, so it may not be too late to enjoy some warm weather. Let's take a look at now our rainfall totals. And as you can see here, Harrisburg is sitting at 0.07 inches. A little bit of rain might sneak in through those 0% that I was talking about earlier, but that's just how it is. You know, it's unfortunate to see. But let's move on now to our 7-day forecast. As you'll see here, Tuesday, we're sitting at a high of 34 and a low of 22. That's what you can expect tomorrow, again, with 0 precipitation, so that's great to see. But as you see through the rest of the week here, we're looking at a little bit of drizzling on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, which is what that 0.07 inches is responsible for. But otherwise, it's just a lot of clouds, a lot of cool weathers, which makes sense as we're coming into November. All right, sending it back to Caleb and Emma at the desk.
Thanks so much, Reed. Emma, do you know who Larry Phipps is?
You know, Caleb, I've seen him walking around campus, but I haven't got the chance to go up and say hi. How about you?
Yeah, no, I've never seen him, but I've heard he's a little bit of a celebrity here. And Jessica Fannin had the opportunity to see what it's like to be Larry's dog walker and to show us a typical Larry walk on this week's Bird's Eye View. Jessica?
Hello and welcome to this week's Bird's Eye View. We are currently at President Kim Phipps' house to take Larry on a walk. Rachel Eves is going to show us the ropes of the position of being President Kim Phipps' dog walker. Let's go. Can you just start off with telling me a little bit about how you got this position?
Yeah, so when I came to campus my freshman year, I had the chance to come to President Phipps' house at Orchard Hill, just like every first-year student does. So she brought him out, and she had said to me that day, oh, like, I can tell that you have a love for animals and a love for dogs. And then sophomore year, she said, hey, I need a dog walker. Are you interested? And he needs to be walked twice a week, about 15 minutes each time.
So just going off of that, can you tell me a little bit about Larry's personality? What is he like?
Larry is the embodiment of an old man in a dog's body. He is very particular about his walks. He's very particular about where he stops, but he's really, really sweet. He likes to sleep a lot now because he's getting a little bit older, but he's always down for cuddles and hugs. Larry definitely loves and absolutely adores KP, and I think that she definitely loves and adores him as well.
I enjoyed getting some time to spend with Rachel and Larry. I think we have a winner for Messiah's cutest dog. For YBTV, I'm Jessica Fannin.
Thank you, Jessica. Now we have our historian, Kelly Gainey, back in the vault to unlock a little bit more about our President Kim Phipps.
Thanks, guys. Welcome back to the vault where I unlock Messiah's history 1 week at a time. This week, it's all about KP. Our beloved President Kim Phipps entered her role as president back in 2004, making history as the first female president of Messiah. In 2008, she put Messiah on the map while hosting the Compassion Forum, which was a nationally televised conversation with presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama on the integration of faith and public policy. During her tenure, KP oversaw Messiah's rise from a college to a university and implemented a school of graduate and professional studies with additions of more majors and online classes available. She also raised over $6 million for the university to update the Falcon Fitness Center, the High Center, Boyer Hall, Larson Student Union, as well as providing more financial aid to students. Here at Messiah, we recognize KP for all that she's done. However, there are many others outside the boundaries of Messiah that notice her great leadership as well. KP has been named with honors such as Women of Influence, Icon Honors, Courageous Leadership, the Athena Award, and a recipient of a Circle of Excellence. KP truly is a brilliant woman who exemplifies what it means to serve and lead others. That's all for this week. Sending it back to Caleb and Emma.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Coming up, Josh is back with President Phipps to talk about advice. And as a reminder, we are still taking viewer-asked questions. Make sure to comment your question on our live stream comment section for a chance to have your question answered and also the chance to win a free YBTV t-shirt. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
My name is Natalie Moy. I'm a senior and I'm a digital media major. I feel like the classes here have helped me to train my eye to detect good design. I like how the professors don't force you into one way of thinking. Instead, they allow you to be creative and think of projects in your own way, and they will guide you and help you envision your project to make it even better and stronger. I have this one professor who starts off his classes with prayers, and I feel like that's really great because it starts us off reminding us that we are creating something for God, so we have that in our minds to create something that He will be pleased with. In my portfolio, I have quite a large variety of works. I have design-based works, I have photography, I have videography. One of the big projects I will be expecting in my portfolio would be from the junior-senior film class that I'm taking this semester. I'll be the production designer for this short film, and I'm looking forward to work with my crew because they're all awesome people. Messiah has this media hub called The Pulse, so I've been working for them for the past few months, and you can do stuff like designing, photography, videography, the radio station, and you can even design websites, write articles. I think it's a really great opportunity for me to get my work out there. I'm a designer, so people on campus or even off campus get to see what I do, and I think that's really great. So if you're a digital media student, you could go into computer science fields, or you could go into the film industries or graphic design. I guess it's the beauty of digital media, it's just so versatile.
Welcome back to our presidential town hall with President Phipps. I'm Josh McLeaf. Jumping right into it, President Phipps, as we know, college is a growing season for a lot of students, and a piece of advice can last a lifetime. So what's a piece of advice you've received that you feel has really benefited you in your career?
I think it would be a piece of advice that came from a professor, and it was open hands, being willing to have open hands and receive what opportunities may come to you. Because all of us, and I'm a very goal-driven person too, and we have goals and we set things in place to achieve those goals, but there may be opportunities that will come to you or needs that people will ask you to respond to that you hadn't anticipated. And so to be open to that, I say to students, life's not a straight line. There's a lot of curves along the way, but sometimes you learn so much in those curves. So I think just having an open spirit and a willingness to listen well, to learn, to always be continually learning, but not to fear new opportunities or maybe even different perspectives than you had thought. So I think that would be the most important advice I've received.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, you've had many years of experience working here. I'm sure you've interacted with many different kinds of people. And you also used to teach communications classes, correct?
Correct.
So with that, what do you feel is the key to effective or efficient communication?
I think one of the most important keys is audience, caring about the audience. And we can focus so much on the message that we want to convey, and that is critical, right? Our clarity, the passion with which we communicate, all of those kinds of things. But you have to think about audience and multiple audiences. So for me as president, even if I'm writing an article or something, there's donors and alumni, there's students, there's parents, there's government officials, there's friends, there's neighbors. And so you have to think about all of that. Right. So I think probably one of the most important things about communicating effectively is to always think about who is being affected. Aristotle used to say the aim of speech is to affect the hearer, as in H-E-A-R-E-R. And I think that's really true, because we don't just share information, we're trying to have an impact with what we say or what we communicate visually or anything
Absolutely,
else.
for sure.
So,
So let's say that here,
Yeah.
was student leaders here on
Right.
campus. What's a piece of advice that you would have for them?
For student leaders, I think it's always to, it may be self-care, because, and I always meet with the president of the student body every month, and every president would tell you, I know Moises would tell you this now, I want to ask them about their personal life, not to be invasive, but how are they doing? How are friendships? If they're in a dating relationship, how is that? How are you doing personally with your family? How are you doing spiritually? And then how you're doing as a student, then how you're doing as a leader. So I think that the self-care and keeping all of that in perspective is really important to being able to lead well.
Absolutely. So it's great that you kind of check in on those personal factors as well as those
Sure.
academic factors.
Yeah.
But as a student, what are some of the opportunities here, whether they're academic or extracurricular, that you advise students to take advantage of here at Messiah?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot at Messiah, and I read the student engagement email that comes out every Monday. I don't know that students all read it, but I read it and I think, oh, this would be great, that would be great. I think in terms of educational kinds of things, as far as specific courses and those kinds of things, I do say to students, I know sometimes general education gets a bad rap with students. Oh, just get through Gen Ed. It's one of my pet peeves. No, you don't get through Gen Ed. Gen Ed is designed to help you, learn to be a better Christian, learn to be an involved citizen, a better human being, all those kinds of things. But I think being open to maybe subjects that you're not naturally interested in and still learning from them is an important part. I think the emphasis we have at Messiah, again on experiential learning, but also on learning about other cultures and other places. It's been harder since COVID, I know, for a lot of people, but even if it's the 3-week cross-cultural, if it's the semester abroad, if it's a missions trip, if it's a service trip, but being willing to step outside of your comfort zone and be stretched to learn in a new environment and learn from other people is something that I think is really essential. And I'm very proud that at Messiah we make that a point of emphasis. And I think the other thing too is to expose yourself to things. Like, I was not really an athletics fan. I was always the kind of student who was on the newspaper and the yearbook and student government and all that. And then I become, the president at Messiah with this incredible athletics program. And I have learned to really love athletics and competitive sports and appreciate what I see happens in students' lives. So I say to students, I'll have students say to me, well, I've never been to a soccer game. You're missing out. You need to go to that. Have you gone to actually a theater, program?
Right.
So I think one of the things, sometimes in high school you get into these pigeonholes, into these groups. You're a band kid or you're a baseball player or something. I would hope at college or university that students can step outside a little bit and just try to take in a lot of the different events that happen on a campus as well. I think that's a really important part of learning.
Absolutely, and it's great that Messiah offers so many different diverse opportunities to kind of just
Absolutely.
familiarize yourself with the unfamiliar and things like that.
Right.
You also made a comment earlier about how you take this season to kind of grow in your faith as well, and even when we were talking about COVID, you mentioned the importance of kind of maintaining that routine of spiritual care. So how do you feel like you balance your own faith and relationship with God in the midst of your busy schedule?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, it is never assuming that because I'm at a Christian college or a Christian college president that I don't have the same spiritual needs as anybody else. And I think that can happen even as Christian college students. I'm in chapel, I'm around this all the time, but that doesn't replace our own individual relationship with God. And so certainly for me, it's those individual practices of prayer and reflection and building in and making those a priority, not only in the morning or in the evening, but I do a lot of praying throughout the day. It can be walking across campus and just seeing a student I know maybe I've had this conversation with and bringing him to mind. So almost like short sentence prayers, but throughout the day. That's an important discipline for me. I've struggled more with church as Messiah's president because often when I go to church, people want to talk to me about work and things at Messiah, things that they like, things they think should change. So that's been a little bit harder, but I have always had a wonderful group of Christian friends, you know, so I feel like I have, while not a part of a small group of a church, I have that some of them are also other people who are employed here at Messiah, but having a smaller community of people that you can talk through theological questions with, that you can, you know, be accountable to each other is important. And then I'm a big reader, and so one of the ways that I continue to nurture my faith is reading the writings of others, whether it's their journeys that they have been through or struggles they've had or questions they've had. And so that's one of the ways that's important to me in terms of my spiritual growth.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of really, you know, important and creative ways to kind of maintain that discipline.
Yeah.
And again, kind of backtracking, not to keep bringing up COVID and stuff like that, but, you know, we talked about making a lot of hard decisions there and trying to keep everybody happy. So how do you feel like you make hard decisions a little bit easier? What are some tips that you have in terms of making those difficult choices?
Well, I've learned not to hurry, but you also have to be efficient, you know, so there's a balance there. You can't, you know, and something like COVID, you didn't always have weeks or times, but in that moment you could say, okay, what's all the information that I possibly need? So try to gather the information and input you need to make a good decision or to make a strong decision. And so I think that's important. Where's the information and how can you get it? Also, I think it's important to have input from trusted sources. So, for example, I mean, I think if it's a student issue, having students be able to speak into that's important because it's going to affect students. So I want to hear from that. So I think certainly having people come into that. And then I always think about, early on in my career, I was mentored by a provost at a Catholic university. And Sister Patricia's asked me one day, she said, who do you serve? And I said, well, you know, I serve the faculty. I'm the provost. She said, no, you serve God and you serve students. And I said, well, yeah, but I think the faculty, I serve them too. And she said, you do care about them, but she said the focus of what you do in education is on the students, and as a Christian educator, your focus first and foremost is always on God. What that helped me do in terms of my mind frame is when there are difficult decisions, let's say it's something as tough as releasing a faculty member who might be very ineffective in the classroom, and no matter how much we have tried to help that person be successful, it's not happening. I care about that person. I want that person, the best for that person, but ultimately we serve students. And if a faculty member, and I'm just using that as an example, or a coach or administrator, is not only not successful, but not able to do what students need, then I have to make that hard decision. And I think you should always struggle with them, you know, especially with decisions that affect people's lives. You should not take for granted or rush them. So you take the appropriate amount of time, you let people speak into it, but you always keep in mind the most important thing that you have to be aware of. We've had to make some hard financial decisions in recent years. We had to end adventure education. Let's say that was a major. We only had 3 students left in it. We couldn't afford that. So we tried to give those faculty member time. They knew they had another year, and then we you know, phased it out. We allowed students to finish, but we couldn't just continue that kind of program without students wanting it, enrolling in it. So you have to make those kinds of decisions in leadership. It's just a part of it. Over time, I think it gets easier, but it should never be so easy that you don't feel in your gut that, boy, this is hard. It
Right.
affects people.
Absolutely, and I think one of the most important things to remember in those times, like I think you mentioned a little bit, is just
Yeah.
remembering your your morals and things like that.
Right.
So, what morals do you feel guide your work, and
Sure.
how do you keep them present and kind of overcome working with people whose morals don't necessarily align with yours?
Sure. Well, and this also comes from my communication training, but always believing in the Imago Dei, that all human beings are created in the image of God and are worthy and of value. And so I think about that and how I communicate that, but also making decisions. How am I always respecting people and honoring people, and even in delivering a difficult message, how do I still do that with respect for the individual or individuals involved? So that's important to me, and I would say a premier value. I think another would obviously be honesty and transparency.
Sure.
And I've seen a lot of leaders, including college presidents and university presidents, who sometimes I think have gotten into real problems by not honestly laying out the challenges that are there, or the financial or whatever. So I think that transparency is, people will respect that and have more confidence in what you have to say. And that's something that I really expect of my team and value. So honesty, transparency, certainly the dignity of all human beings. And then I also think that as a leader, you have to have conviction. You have to have your core set of beliefs that drive you, but they also have to be guided by compassion. And so, when you work with people, I would say, like on the team, the president's cabinet that I select, we actually have a cabinet covenant that we sign every year together about how we're going to work with each other, about what our core values and convictions are. But we also understand that we may not only have to work with others here at Messiah, but outside of Messiah that may not share those same morals and values. So you try to be true to your own. You try to understand that others may see some things differently. And sometimes I think I am really optimistic, though, that if people talk to each other and really listen to each other, they at least can understand each other, even if they come at things from different moral vantage points. That may be too optimistic, but I have found in my life most often that works if people feel that you really care deeply and respect them, and you're not just holding your convictions because you think you're better than them or something, but this is what we've had. And I would say this, in some of our, being a faith-based college and a religious college, sometimes people have expectations of what they think that might be like, what you might be like.
Right.
You're going to have this opinion, or you're going to be judgmental in this way or whatever. And I just try to do my best in all of those interactions to be a person of grace, and that my faith motivates me to love God and love neighbor and serve God and serve neighbor. And I think if you do that with integrity and with humility, you can work with about anybody.
Absolutely. I think those are definitely some key concepts to, kind of building that relationship and, working with a person, even if it is really difficult. And we've talked a lot about you being the president of the university, but you're a mother as well. So what is one piece of advice you've given your daughter that you hope really sticks with her no matter where she ends up or where she goes?
She'd probably tell you lots and lots of pieces of advice. But I think it would be that people matter. So it's the same along the idea of the Imago Dei, but people and caring about people, it really matters. So in her case, she's getting a PhD in communication with an emphasis in digital media and that, but she really cares about her students, about her fellow graduate students. But I just see her constantly like giving and doing things for others, and I would hope that was I think she would say that that's an important lesson that we try to model in our family and then also in our work lives, that people really matter and they're of value. And one of the ways we show our love for God is the way we love others.
Absolutely, absolutely. One final question in this segment. Thinking back to when you were a fresh college graduate, there are a lot of people approaching that season now. Myself and others are getting ready to graduate this semester. Lots more this coming spring. So what's one piece of advice that you have for college graduates?
Do a budget.
Do a budget.
I think I'm pretty good at budgets now after years of being in leadership, but as a graduate college graduate, and there was a first salary, and I felt rich. I wasn't, but you feel like, wow, you know, after being in school. And so, and I love to shop, and so that wasn't necessarily the best way to handle my first year out. So I think doing a budget, really sitting down and, you know, working through that, I think that's really important.
Yeah, just crack open Microsoft Excel, you know, type it all out and figure out
Yep.
you know, how much you have to spend.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much
Sure.
again, President Phipps. A little advice goes a long way, and it's something everyone seeks. After the break, it will be time to hear from students on campus, and they will have a chance to have their questions answered by President Phipps. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this break.
My name is Macy Thornton. I'm a senior and I'm a public relations major. I was initially drawn to the public relations major because I've always been great with people and the skills are very transferable. One thing that's definitely unique to Messiah is that they teach from a Christian perspective, and I've been able to use that in internships and those types of opportunities. The professors are great, they're very approachable, and they genuinely want to see you succeed. I'm involved in athletics in that I'm on the Messiah women's basketball team, and it's been one of the most enriching experiences of my life. I'm in a class called Senior PR Campaign, and we're working for an actual nonprofit organization off campus, so we're helping them with some PR related things, and it's just really great to actually put theory into practice and to feel like you're making a difference even though you're still in school. And I also had the opportunity to do an internship with a minor league baseball team. PR practitioners have to conduct themselves ethically. They have to have integrity. They have to be honest and transparent with the people they work with. So ethics is a big part of public relations. I believe Christian PR practitioners are called to hold themselves to a higher standard because of their beliefs, and that should show in their professional life. I feel very prepared with regard to the experiences I've had, the internship opportunities I've had, and the knowledge I have that the PR major has given me and the skills I've attained through it.
Welcome back to the Presidential Town Hall. It's now time to take a look at those student-submitted questions that from our live stream on YouTube and also on Instagram. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the first one here. What advice would you give to students post-graduation? Obviously, you just talked about the budget, but are there any other pieces of advice that you have for students facing graduation here soon?
I think it would also be to realize that the next step doesn't have to be the best step. I guess it's the idea that take that first step and trust that that is just a first step. Maybe that's a better way to say it. I think I see students being paralyzed, like, oh, I don't know that I really want to live. Like, let's say you had the opportunity in Harrisburg, and you're like, oh, I don't think I want to live in Harrisburg. But maybe that will be the first step in the entree for you into something else. So I think it would be not to become paralyzed with thinking about all the different aspects of what you want for the future, but take a first step that can be positive along the way. So I think that's important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great answer. We'll take a look at that next question. This one is coming from Julia Kropp. What is your earliest memory of working at Messiah?
I came to Messiah in 1998 as the academic dean. We didn't have the school structure then, so there was one academic dean over all the departments. And I had been at Malone University for 14 years, loved my students, loved teaching there. I was a department chair and then a dean there. And thought that I would come here and be the dean and then probably go back to teaching because I loved that so much at some point in time. So my earliest memory would be coming here in June of 1998. And I can remember driving to campus and my daughter was at my brother's, and Kelly was coming later. My husband commuted for a year before he was able to join me. I just remember driving onto campus and thinking, wow, this is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and I get to be here at this wonderful place. I think back about that now. And that's before all the work we've done with all the buildings. So, you know, the Fry Extension and the Fitness Center and Martin Dining Commons and the High Center and the library model. None of that was here.
Right.
But I just remember thinking it was such a great campus and a great place. And so it's just been such a wonderful thing. The physical building just reminds me of all the wonderful people I've interacted with and things we've done along the way. But my first memory would just be driving onto campus and realizing, wow, this is my new home, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's still a very beautiful campus. We know with
Oh,
the covered
yeah.
bridge and the breaches, you know, or right across the way.
Right.
I think it's still a very beautiful campus.
Oh, I do
to be
too.
part of.
And I think the buildings, you know, that we've done hopefully have served the students well, serve employees well, and we always try to do them with, you know, just to make them be what they need to be and to be attractive and functional.
Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
Great. All right, we'll take a look at the next question. This is coming from Kelly Ganey. What is your favorite sport to watch on campus? I know you mentioned soccer was a big one for you. Is
Yeah.
that your favorite? Are there any others?
I will say that, you know, soccer has become a favorite. I tell people all the time, I'm a fan of the real football. And so, yeah, I would say that we've enjoyed the most. And as a family now, we are more involved with the Premier League soccer, big Ted Lasso fans, did the Ted Lasso tour. I went to London this summer on vacation. So soccer would be my favorite, but it really is about students. So I try to like make sure I at least get to a swim meet every year. I get to a wrestling match. I see some basketball, which is usually just because of also when they play. I will say another sport that I've learned to really love here at Messiah is volleyball.
Okay. Yeah.
Just, you know, it's a great environment, and
Right.
we have two strong teams. So I would say all of those, but probably soccer would definitely be the favorite.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the greatest things about Messiah Sports too is just the student body as well. You know, a lot of
Right.
very passionate sports fans here on campus that, you know,
Yeah.
always come out, you know, with a lot of energy to support our teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They really do. And, you know, and that's just, I think it's a great, one of the things I love about like student fans and stuff here at Messiah too is like anybody can be a part of that group, you know, just come and cheer and those kinds of things. And so I think it helps build good unity across campus.
For sure. All right. We'll take a look at the next student submitted question here. What is your favorite part about serving as president? That one's coming from Joanna Malakar.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite part would be interaction with students, and that's so important, number one, because it reminds me all the time why you do all of the other work that you do, but also I think you have to interact with students to be able to tell, if I'm the chief storyteller for the college.
Right.
And I've had other presidents say to me, you seem to spend a lot of time with students, why do you? And I say, well, how else can you like share with donors? So if I'm asking a donor for a $10 million gift for student financial aid, or let's say when it was the High Center, I need to be able to tell stories of what impact that would have on students' lives or student needs, or tell the story of an individual student. So I think my favorite part is being with students, because students always remind me of the best about the human condition, let's say. Right now there's so much divisiveness, so much polarization, but when I'm with Messiah students, I always feel encouraged and inspired, and they want to make a difference, and they have meaningful relationships with each other, and they want to serve God and serve others. So I think that's my favorite part.
Absolutely, for sure. We have time for one more student submitted question real quick. What exciting plans or programs are in the works for Messiah? That was coming from Amy Kropp.
Well, certainly a number of graduate programs. I mentioned a couple of them a little bit earlier, but in case you tune in later, a master's in music therapy, one in social work. We're also working on doing some more like 4+1 programs like we've just done with the MBA and with business. We're looking at an HDFS major that then would be a shorter route to occupational therapy. So trying to find creative kinds of accelerated programs, I think, is certainly a part of what we hope to do at Messiah. We've added some new majors that are continuing to grow right now, cybersecurity and finance, and so I think allowing those majors to grow and you know, be more fully orbed, I think that's important. I think in terms of our campus plant, we have a lot of the buildings that we need. We are looking at updating our science labs, but then residence halls are a priority, and so we will begin on Noggle this summer. We have to do it over 2 years when you have students already in it, but we have figured out our funding and all of that.
Great.
So we'll start on Noggle and the hill behind Noggle and some of those things.
Yeah.
And we have a plan with residence halls and apartments over a period of time. So that's the other thing, you know, we have in many ways, I think, a very fine campus, and our facilities people do, and grounds people do a great job. But Noggle hasn't, you know, has been around. I think some of our trustees lived in it in the early 80s, and not a lot's been done since then. And then you suddenly realize that's 50 years.
Yeah,
it's
a long
time. So you have to keep up with renovations and things too.
For sure, yeah. I know there's always that big discussion among first years about, you know, Noggle versus Whitmer. You know, you got one place that's like a hotel, and the other one's not, you know, quite as nice. But yeah.
Yeah, but no. So we've got a catch-up work to do there. The other thing that we're seriously looking at is the opportunity. You know, we want to continue to recruit more students from international contexts, but we're also thinking about, for example, we are having conversations with a junior college that's abroad in Southeast Asia about maybe a joint program between the two schools. So looking at what if we had, in essence, what might be like a satellite Messiah campus in another context. So that's on the radar too, as far as some of the plans we're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a lot in store for the university.
Sure,
which is
absolutely.
great. So we're going to be ready to wrap up for the night here, but before we do want to announce the winner of our YBTV t-shirt from submitting the questions. So we put all these names into a random name generator, and this is the one they gave us. So the winner is Joanna Malakar. You have won your very own YBTV t-shirt. We'll be reaching out to you shortly about size and arranging pickup for all that. So thank you all for submitting your questions. President Phipps, thank you again for coming on the air. It was great.
Pleasure.
I feel like we really got a good sense of, you know, your dedication to the students and just your love for the job. So a lot of great discussion tonight. So thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you, Josh, and I appreciate the team here at YB.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that concludes this year's Presidential Town Hall. From President Phipps and all of Yellow Breeches Television and myself, we thank you for tuning in. Have a great night, Messiah.